Hey everyone, let me tell you a quick story about my evolving relationship with the Sony 35mm f1.4 GM lens. Last year, during my 5-month Europe trip, I brought a bunch of camera gear, including this lens. But guess what? I took 0 photos with this lens because I decided to ship it back to the US midway of the trip to minimize my gear. I mentioned the story in this video. I'll leave you a link in the description. At the time, it just didn't fit my shooting needs for that adventure. Fast forward to my recent 1-month trip to China, the story completely changed. Out of the 11,000 photos and videos I captured during this trip, this lens accounted for over 3,500 shots. It became my most used lens. So why the drastic change? That's what I want to dive into today. I'll share who this lens is perfect for, the scenarios where it truly shines, and its pros and cons. So let's get into it. The Sony 35mm f1.4 GM lens is perfect for photographers who value sharpness, bokeh, and versatility in a lightweight package. Based on my experiences, here are the types of the creators who will get the most out of this lens. Number 1, street and travel photographers. The 35mm focal length is great for storytelling, capturing scenes as you see them with minimal distortion. Number 2, portrait photographers. With its f1.4 aperture, you get stunning subject isolation and creamy bokeh, perfect for both environmental and tight portraits. Number 3, event and wedding photographers. Its fast autofocus and low light capabilities make it ideal for capturing candid, fleeting moments. Number 4, hybrid shooters. If you do both photography and videography, this lens transitions beautifully between the two. If these sounds like you, this lens might become your next favorite tool. Now, let's talk about the scenarios where this lens really stood out during my China trip. The 35mm is a natural focal length for street photography. In China, I found it perfect for capturing vibrant markets, intricate architecture, and everyday life. It feels immersive, but not too wide. The second scenario is the low light moments. From night city views, golden hour scenes, dimly lit temples to indoor scenarios such as restaurants, shopping malls, boutique stores, and dinner gatherings, the f1.4 aperture made low light shooting effortless. I didn't have to bump up my ISO too much in most of the indoor scenarios, which kept my images clean and sharp. The third scenario is the candid family moments. Whether it was for my kids, wandering in the city street, or a spontaneous local market walk in the crowd, the 35mm let me stay close enough to capture my family and kids while still including a bit of the environment to set the scene. For tips on how to take stunning travel photos in crowded scenes, check out this video for more details. Now, the fourth scenario is videography on the go. The fast and reliable autofocus made this lens a joy for capturing smooth cinematic clips, especially in dynamic settings like bustling streets or serene landscapes. Although I have to confess, I didn't use this lens for videos because I brought my DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which kind of took care of all my video needs in this trip. If you're on a hunt for a mirrorless camera or have been using DSLR for a while but are not sure if you should upgrade your equipment, consider checking out my free video guide of Mirrorless Camera Ultimate Buying Guide. Hopefully it will save you hours, days, or even weeks of research time and learn what camera gear and features that matter most to you. And most importantly, how to make a logic purchase decision for your next camera gear. Okay, let's break down the pros and cons for the Sony 35mm f1.4 GM lens. The top strength, as I see it, is obviously its low light performance. So overall, my top reason to use a prime lens over zoom lens is for low light environment, particularly indoor scenarios. I almost always grab my prime lens when I'm in a restaurant or on an evening walk. Different from any outdoor environment in the summer, such as most of my photo scenarios in my Europe trip last year, we have many social gatherings with family, relatives, friends, or colleagues that I haven't seen for many years or even decades in this trip. So it's no brainer. I use my 35 prime lens more often than ever. The second top strength for this lens is its outstanding image quality. The sharpness and detail are unmatched. I shot wide open at f1.4 most of the time, and it never failed to impress me with the image quality. To learn how I photograph with aperture wide open in strong light conditions, outdoors especially, please check this video where I talk about my most used filters. The third strength for this lens is obviously its compact and lightweight. At just about 525 grams, it's super portable for travel photographers like me. Compare this lens mounted on my Sony a7 IV to my most used Canon setup, which is the Canon RF 24-70mm f2.8 mounted on my Canon R5 camera. You can immediately tell the size difference. I mentioned this Canon camera and lens combo in this video and why it was better suited for my 5-month Europe trip than this Sony 35mm prime lens. The other pro for this Sony 35mm prime lens is the versatile focal length. It's wide enough for landscapes and tight enough for portraits. The 35 focal length was really a sweet spot for many photos I took in restaurant and city walk scenarios. Although in the past I typically would pick up my zoom lens for landscape photography, this Sony 35mm prime lens can still meet my needs to take landscape photos if I only want to carry one camera and one lens for an entire day. Now let's be realistic, nothing is perfect. There are of course some shortcomings coming with this lens. Number one is the premium price tag. At around $1,300 US, it's not an entry-level lens, but it's still $1,000 cheaper than the most versatile zoom lens, such as the 24-70mm f2.8, no matter for Sony or Canon. However, you can always check the third-party options such as the Sigma 35mm f1.4, which is 40% cheaper. Second shortcoming, obviously, is the no zoom flexibility. If you are used to zoom lenses, you probably need to adjust to zooming with your feet, moving forward and backward to go to the right spot. And I mentioned in my past videos why I typically would choose zoom lenses to photograph my kids because it's just fast and easy. However, if you practice enough and get used to the prime lens, you can certainly find this 35mm easy enough to capture many candid shots. Now, the third downside is the weather resistance. While it's weather sealed, it's not really invincible in extreme conditions. I'd be cautious in heavy rain or dust storms. Of course, you will say, hey, I'm not going to take pictures in heavy rain. Yeah, but you might carry around with you, right? In the past, I have sacrificed several camera equipment in the ocean water splash and sand environment on the beach. So just be careful. In summary, for me, the pros far outweigh the cons, especially for the kind of photography I love to do. There you have it, why the Sony 35mm f1.4 GM lens became my most used lens during my China trip. Its versatility, lightweight design, and exceptional performance have outweighed its inconvenience to zoom in many situations. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what's your favorite lens for travel photography. Don't forget to subscribe for more lens reviews, photography tips, and travel inspirations in the future. See you in the next one.